So I got a lot of comments from you guys under my previous video about Zak Bagans and Ghost Adventures, and there were two questions or comments that kept reoccurring. The first one was that people kept saying, well, I think once Nick left the show, everything went downhill. That was the beginning of the end. So that seems to reflect the opinion of a lot of people, and feel free to leave your opinion on that down in the comment section below. And the second question that I got a lot and that a lot of people kept asking over and over again and speculate about is like, why did Nick even leave Ghost Adventures? There are loads of rumors floating around and it feels like we never really got the full story. I mean, there was clearly tension between the two, right? Between Zak and Nick. There was something going on, but it feels like it was never properly explained and broken down. Well, that has changed now. Nick Groff has come forward to tell his side of the story, and that's what I want to look at in this video. I want to look at Nick's full statement, break it down, comment on it, and then later on in the video, I want to address the rumors that are out there that allegedly Zak Bagans got other paranormal shows cancelled because he actually commented on that himself. So I want to add a little bit of clarification to that rumor that's floating around out there as well. So let's get into it. Now, when it comes to Nick leaving Ghost Adventures, there were a few stories that, again, people were commenting under my video that were really reoccurring all the time. So, for example, one such rumor was that Nick basically worked on other side projects while also being contracted to Ghost Adventures. And that was basically a breach of contract and that he wasn't allowed to do that. And that's why he was fired, okay? Other people were saying that Nick did a bad thing, which was never really reiterated on, whatever that may be. Then there were people who just said he broke his NDA. He spoke about stuff that he was contractually forbidden to talk about. So those were the rumors floating around. Well, luckily, earlier this year, as I said, Nick came forward and gave us a 7-minute TikTok video, which, by the way, I'm linking down in the description so you can check it out yourself in full length, go back and forth. And this was based on a Q&A session. So he went out and said, what are the most urgent, the most pressing questions that you guys have? And obviously, it was pretty much all related to Ghost Adventures. So here is Nick Groff talking for 7 minutes about what went on behind the scenes, why he left Ghost Adventures, and how it all went down. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's get into this. I got all your questions. I sorted through them. Let me start off by saying this. I never had an NDA. I was not fired from Ghost Adventures. I never did, quote, a bad thing. I never cheated in a relationship that I was in. I was misled with the ongoing of Paranormal Lockdown. I kept my head up for 9 years. I pushed forward. I kept trying to move on, creating new hit shows. But the previous hosts that I used to work with keep trying to stop my career. So this is my story. This is from my perspective, and now I have to talk about it.
The previous host. I wonder who that could be. I can't come up with any names there.
Okay, Rachel asked, this may be controversial, I know, but what was it like working on the GA team after the documentary and Fame hit? Just wondering if rumors are true about you-know-whose ego from experience. I questioned him once about how he treats his team and was blocked instantly.
In my opinion, this rumor is true. I witnessed it firsthand and I saw him treat people just as poorly. This host was terrible to work with. It was an extremely hostile environment to work in. And also Dakota can speak on his experience with him too.
I love that they're avoiding to say the name Zak Bagans at any cost. Like, this host was bad to work with, okay? Again, this is just Nick Groff telling his side of the story. You probably got to put this into perspective. You know, let's just put it this way. His newer shows, his later shows did not go as well and were by no means as successful as Ghost Adventures is. So it is probably fair to assume that in the statements that he's making, there's a little bit of bitterness in there as well of him not being as successful and not being part of this obviously very financially successful show as well. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not the truth. I'm just saying there are always two sides to a story. And if we would get Zak Bagans to share his view on this, then it's probably going to be slightly different, but here you go. That's at least Nick Groff's take on this.
All right, this is from Glenda from Texas. Aaron has already explained why you were fired. You went behind Zak's back, started a new show without discussing anything with him. Trying to destroy him at this late date will do you no good, except she spelled no wrong.
I did not get fired. That is false. I did not go behind anyone's back. My contract allowed me to produce other shows, just like the other host who I was working with, who produced several other shows. This is simply jealousy. Nothing to do with legalities.
There were multiple questions regarding whether or not you believe that you have been limited or blocked from appearing on Travel Channel.
And we're getting into this in the end of this video, so stay tuned for this, right? Because other people, at least there were these rumors floating around saying that other people said that he got some shows canceled, or he tried to limit, and Zak Bagans that is, tried to limit the success of other shows. These are rumors. We get to that by the end of the video because, again, Zak Bagans actually commented on that himself. So stay tuned for that.
In my opinion, I do believe I was blocked from the network and continuing my shows specifically because of one host who I used to work with. And the reason I know this is because several executives I spoke to at the network said, I can't come to that network as long as he's there. And also, years later, speaking to Dakota, who finally spoke out about it and confirmed it for me, that yes, when he was filming with this one host at a location, this host came into the room bragging, laughing, saying, ha ha ha, Nick's never going to work in America again because I gave the network an ultimatum to choose him or me. So now, having that confirmation, this is the reason I'm speaking out today about it, because finally someone has the guts to talk about it publicly.
Now, I'm not going to lie, these are pretty serious allegations, right? He's not only saying that this host and these executives kind of said you can't come to the network as long as the other host, who shall not be named, is there. And then following on from that, to claim that at some point Dakota witnessed how the person whose name we're not mentioning apparently in this video entered a room, laughed about it, bragged, claiming that he gave the network an ultimatum, right? Like that's a bold accusation that kind of goes against what we're going to see in a statement from Zak Bagans later on in this video. So I don't know where the truth lies, but here's Nick Groff making those quite bold claims, to be honest, about this host, the mysterious host.
Marshmar1 says, I'm sorry, this was like 10 years ago. Move on with your life. Stay out of the drama.
It's not drama when it directly impacts my life, my career, and my family. I wouldn't have to get involved in this conversation if this individual didn't continue interfering with my life.
There's a ton of questions wanting to know exactly why you left Ghost Adventures.
In my opinion, based on what I was told, a certain individual that I worked with called up the network and said he would not show up at the next location if I showed up. I was dragged along for 2 months and I kept being told, we don't need you at this next location. Then another week would go by, we don't need you at that location. Got to the point where I was dragged along for so long that my lawyer finally stepped in. He gave me a choice. I could either move on and make something better, create something new, or just be a sitting duck and just wait. So I chose to move on and create Paranormal Lockdown.
So in my opinion, that only answers half of the question, right? So he says, like, I was called up and we don't need you at this location, and then we also don't need you at that location. And he was just kind of booted out in a very kind of subtle way by just not really firing him, but just saying, you're not needed anymore. Now, my follow-on question would be, like, what led to that? Right, like what happened between you and the mysterious host that led to the executives or whoever calling him up and saying you're not needed at the next location? Like, what is the exact thing that led to that? Because these things don't happen out of nowhere. Something happened, something went down that made Nick fall out of favor for some reason. So it doesn't really answer the question in full, in my opinion.
Okay, so this brings me to a bunch of other questions that have to do with Paranormal Lockdown. People want to know what happened to Paranormal Lockdown. Many of them are saying it was my favorite paranormal show of all time.
Paranormal Lockdown became one of the highest rated shows for the network at the time. And yes, it is true that a merger was occurring and we were kind of on hiatus, still filming. But then I was told by the network executives that we would continue Paranormal Lockdown into 20 episodes and keep going after it. But then suddenly, radio silence. We had to get on the phone, talk to the network, and try to figure out what is going on, because this is what I was being promised. And this brings me back around to what Dakota witnessed about a certain individual, a host who walked into the room bragging and talking about how he stopped Paranormal Lockdown. I believe I know what happened to my show, Paranormal Lockdown, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this, right? He makes that allegation. You'll see later, if you stay tuned in the video, what Zak has to say about some of that. And I don't know. I'm kind of caught between the front lines. I can't say either or is true. I kind of enjoyed Paranormal Lockdown. I don't think it was bad, but was it canceled because of Zak Bagans, or was it canceled because the ratings just didn't fulfill the expectations? We don't know. But to be honest with you, my personal feeling is, in terms of the ratings and the views, I mean, people loved it. It certainly had its fans, but it probably wasn't as successful. And that does apply, and this is just me speculating, kind of to probably quite a few of those paranormal shows, because there's just a market oversaturation, it feels like at this point. There's so much out there. A lot of traffic has moved from the traditional television stations over to YouTube, where you have like really big channels that do the same kind of content. It's very, very successful. So I can't really make up my mind what exactly happened, but it feels like at least the ratings probably played a role in the cancellation as well. And that's just my opinion. Okay, I just want to make it clear. It's just my opinion.
A lot of people have sent screenshots or even tagged us in the original tweets that Zak posted years ago. And it goes like this. Zak says, anyone out there who gets fired from a job for doing bad things can't use said job as a resume of achievements, total deception. He goes on to say, please for one time in your life, do something 100% original. And then continues to say, disgusted to see someone using our show name, Ghost Adventures, to keep promoting shows and himself that we want absolutely nothing to do with.
Ouch! Jesus Christ, he's taking him apart so hard. That's what I mean, right? If you talk like this about someone that you founded this show with, that you started this with, that you worked with for 9 years, dude, something really, really serious must have happened, right? And I don't know what it is, but bro, this indicates some serious beef behind the scenes that we just never really got the full story of.
Here's proof that he's putting out statements about me, talking about how I did, quote, bad things. Multiple people in the industry reached out to me and stated Zak called them and told them not to work with me. After speaking with Dakota, I learned that these patterns have not stopped. I believe that these rumors were used to try to hinder my career. And as far as him going on and saying, I use Ghost Adventures for my resume, yes, it is part of my resume. I helped create the title Ghost Adventures. I edited it. I was a co-creator. I was in it for 10 seasons. I have every right to use Ghost Adventures on my resume. Bottom line, these are false statements and his way of trying to ruin my reputation.
Nikita asked, are you way happier now getting to investigate your way and have full control of what you're producing?
As you're seeing now, people in the industry are talking how difficult it is to move away from a network that's fully producing their project. I took matters into my own hands, gained full control over my project, Deathwalker, so this would not happen again. To answer your question, I'm way happier now. I have full control of my projects. I'm away from toxic people. There's no restraints. And I'm able to pursue my passion of real paranormal investigations with credible evidence.
What about the allegations in the media regarding you cheating?
These allegations are completely false. I have never cheated. I have never had an affair. In my opinion, these rumors and allegations were put out into the media purposely by a very hateful and jealous woman.
And it's also nobody's business. If he cheats in his private life, why, who cares, bruv? You do it or you don't. That shouldn't even be a question, but anyway.
Chris says, how's the baby doing? I hope you all are happy and healthy.
Aww.
I couldn't be happier. The baby is doing fantastic. All of his brothers and sisters are doing great. They all love each other. Tessa and I are extremely happy with our life right now, and we're growing together. We're working on new projects, and we're pursuing our passion. I could go on and on about why I have zero respect for these certain people that I worked with in the past. I have never allowed anything to stand in my way. Tessa and I will not allow anything negative to stand in our way with everything that we have coming up. I'm putting all these rumors to rest because, again, we're moving forward. Tessa and I have been doing this since we were little kids, and we look forward to continuing to bring you real paranormal content.
All right, so that's that. That's Nick's statement. There's a lot to unpack there, I feel. Quite serious allegations against a host. Again, I still don't know who he's talking about. But I mean, that stuff really gets into the nitty-gritty. But I feel there's more to the story, at least from the way he describes it. It feels like he's leaving certain things out. That's just my interpretation and my opinion on how he unpacks it. So I found this interview on the Paranormal Channel, okay, also with Nick Groff. And he talks a little bit more about his experience with Ghost Adventures and just adds another layer of information to the whole story. So I want to fly through this with you guys really quickly as well. We're not going to look at the whole thing. I'm going to probably edit it a little bit because you don't need to watch the whole thing. Again, I'm linking it down in the description. You can just go watch the whole. It's 11 minutes and 24 seconds, so you can check it out. But let's get into it and see if we can uncover a little bit more of the story.
It's like one of those things, man. I really appreciated what Ghost Adventures was and what it turned into when I was doing it, and it was my blood, sweat, and tears. Honestly, when I say blood, sweat, and tears, I truly mean that. When I made the documentary, when I did season 1, season 2, season 3, when I was editing it, when I was shooting it, when I was dragging my own camera through the airport, when I had 50 mini DV tapes that I was carrying around. I didn't have help. I was doing all this stuff like by myself, man. Like it was rugged, and I loved every second of it.
To be honest, like I buy that. I think that's true. He really put his blood, sweat, and tears, however you say, in these first few seasons, and especially into the documentary, editing it, putting all the final touches on it. That stuff is a lot of work, especially if, like he says, if you have to travel, carry all your equipment around, you don't have a crew. So I can kind of see where he's coming from. He often says, well, I'm not bitter at all, I'm totally fine. I'm working on so much exciting stuff now. Cool. But to be honest, I can just like go from myself kind of, and like I would totally be bitter. Okay, I would be bitter about something like this, and it is probably something that never really lets you go. Because again, you started it. He said earlier, I think he came up with even with the name with someone else together, right? So it's his baby. And for them to see it grow and be so successful and almost being taken over by, the remaining crew, it must be hard on him. No doubt about that.
A lot of hard work. And I really just love the experience and finding the evidence and looking for the facts and the histories and the location. Like 3 dudes running around like crazy locations that everybody wanted. That was like, I love the raw elements of that back then. You know what I mean?
Shows. Yeah.
It was,
and ironically, that's exactly what got lost, in my opinion, from the show, right? The way he describes it. Like 3 dudes with a bunch of cameras running around, the rawness of it. I recently watched a newer episode of Ghost Adventures. It's not that. It's not very raw anymore, if you want to call it that, in my personal opinion, okay? They really moved on 180 degrees from that original concept. It's a completely different show now. And I think a lot of you guys, that was also reflected in the comments under my other videos, you guys missed that as well, right? You guys wanted to be as raw in the beginning. That's what everyone loved about the show. And I see posts on Reddit where people review the newer episodes. It's not that people are ecstatic in excitement about where the show is going and the direction of it. So, yeah, I think he's making a good point there.
I met Aaron in a college class. He snuck into my college class and we befriended. The teacher's like, hey, you want to do some like short films and work on some projects? Work with this guy. And it was me. So him and I, that's how we became friends. And we were friends for a long time. And I met Zak later. He was a wedding DJ. And that's how I met Zak. And
I love that. I love that he sneaks in there that Zak was a wedding DJ. That's a little beautiful nugget right there.
And I was all into the paranormal. So I said, you know what? I want to go look for ghosts. I want to see if ghosts really exist. That's how it all started. So what do? I called up Zak. I said, hey, dude, you want to go look for ghosts? I went to this haunted mine town in Virginia City, a couple years ago. All these places, there's places we could drive to. I got a camera. I'm working at this job, 9 to 5. Let's go out and explore the world. Let's go look for ghosts. And I told him that. I got excited and I was telling him this passion. And I have a camera, I saved up all my money and I had a camera from doing construction work and I can film it all. I know how to hit the record button on it, And I built my little computer and I self-taught myself editing with A/B editing back there when first Adobe Premiere came out. So I knew how to like construct some video. And then I said, man, we should bring another camera guy. I know this awesome guy. He's funny. He's awesome. And I know my buddy Aaron, he'd probably love to come along. And that I called him up and the 3 of us jumped in a little Scion car that was Zak's and we drove up the haunted mine towns and filmed everything for like a year straight.
That's actually wild, right? I mean, again, I don't know if this is true. This is just Nick's story, making a claim basically. But he's saying he started the whole thing. He had the idea. He had the fascination for ghosts. Then he called up Zak. Then he suggested Aaron, and he assembled the crew for the first time. He said he had a camera, and he's basically selling in this interview as if the whole thing was his idea and came from him. I don't know if that's true. It's a bold statement, but again, if that's true, dude, that leaves you bitter, man. If you spawn a thing like that, you come up with a name, you actually assemble the crew, put all the blood, sweat, and tears into the editing, and then it blows up, gets really big, and then you kind of get booted out, as we heard earlier. If all of that is true, then dude, man, that's not good. That will definitely, it would leave me bitter, at least. But anyway, as was briefly mentioned by Nick in some of these comments, he claims, and many other people claim this on Twitter as well, and that is that Zak Bagans actively was in touch with executives at networks and tried to get shows canceled. So here's, for example, a tweet where someone replies to this picture. It was posted by Sam and Colby. This is one of these huge YouTube shows. I think they're just on YouTube. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't watch their content, but they're huge in this sector now. And then Josh, I don't know who that is, replies, after what he did to the Project Fear crew, this is super lame. And then someone replies, you act as if he told Discovery to cancel Project Fear. And then Josh replies, he did, along with several other network paranormal shows. And it's not just this random guy claiming it. There's also Dakota, Laden chiming into this debate, okay? And adding a little bit of clarification. And then we're going to look at Zak's reply to all of this, because he literally replied to the tweet we just read. But first, let's listen to what Dakota had to say.
Okay, guys, I got to make this quick. First of all, you're amazing. You guys, the love, the support this week has been unreal. And clearly that message is going far, because I just got a phone call and I have to publicly address this now. Here we go. Did Zak Bagans shut down Destination Fear? No, he didn't. Did Zak Bagans call the network and say, shut it down? No, he didn't. Right now, we don't even know if Destination Fear is canceled or renewed. I will say it's not looking good.
Yeah, this was before it was actually canceled. It is canceled.
But I have to tell you guys, in this industry, these decisions are business. This is a business decision, and it has nothing to do with anyone's ego or whatever. However, does that mean that Zak and me are friends and that he's been supporting the show and everything has been chipper and great? No, it doesn't. And I have a lot to say and more to come on that front.
Now, I couldn't find any other video from him where he chimes in the future, because he says, like, I've got a lot more to come. This is from March 2023, so it's fairly recent. And he makes it very clear that Zak did not call the studio or the executives, and that Zak was not involved in the cancellation. This is also interesting because it seems to go directly against what Nick claimed earlier, right? He said that he heard from Dakota firsthand that apparently this host entered a room, laughed about it, bragged that Nick's never going to work in the industry again, and that he got Paranormal Lockdown canceled.
And this brings me back around to what Dakota witnessed about a certain individual, a host who walked into the room bragging and talking about how he stopped Paranormal Lockdown.
Now, the specific video is not about Paranormal Lockdown, it's about Destination Fear, right? Because it links to Dakota Laden. But still, it's kind of weird, right? It seems to form like a little triangle of claims. Like, Nick says a thing that Dakota said, and then Dakota says, did Zak actually call up the network and get us canceled? He said, no, he didn't. Now let's look at this tweet that Zak sent out in reply to this guy Josh, where he claims that he canceled several other network paranormal shows. So Zak replied and said, be careful what you say, as it's completely false. I have and had absolutely nothing to do with any shows being canceled. I'm not the president of corporate networks. So he's kind of denying everything. Now, he's not specifically denying what Nick said in the beginning, where he made these claims that Zak came into a room, that was another story that he claimed came from Dakota, bragged about it and said that he set the studio executives an ultimatum and saying, like, you either choose me or Zak, and then as a result, they kind of chose Zak. That's at least the story that Nick laid out, and he got canceled because of that. So in a way, it remains to be Nick's word against Zak's word, right? I don't know the truth. I find the story very, very fascinating. Look, we're probably never really going to find out the full story exactly of what happened behind the scenes, but it's fun to talk about and it's fun to speculate, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think? Do you think Zak is lying, right? Like, or stretching the truth a little bit in that he actually did influence and did something to manipulate those as executives, using his power as obviously probably one of the biggest and most popular hosts of any paranormal show? Or do you think what he says here is true, that he had nothing to do with it, that these are all false claims, and that he never got involved with either canceling any show or, I mean, he didn't again state this specifically, but or like getting Nick booted out of the network, so to say. I don't know what the truth is. It's a fascinating story, but guys, I'd love to hear your take on it. So leave any of your thoughts, and also favorite Ghost Adventures memories, maybe favorite episodes and Ghost Adventures moments, maybe with or without Nick, down in the comment section below. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this. Guys, I appreciate you watching the video. If you enjoy the content, then don't forget to smash the like button on your way out. You can also subscribe to the channel for more. You can join our Discord, okay? The link to that is in the description. It's free. We all hang out there. We can all discuss our love or hate for Ghost Adventures, whatever it shall be. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out. Bye.